مرحبا للجميع، السلام عليكم. طيب اللي ما بيعرفني اسمي تامر نفار، وانا كثير سعيد اكون جزء من هاي الامسيه وجزء واقف على مسرح الخشبه. عشان كل القصه انه كثير صح لنا انه ناخذ محلات اللي من 500 ولا 1000 بني ادم، بس قررنا انه بما انه مسرح الخشبه قرر ياخذ خطوه كثير شجاعه، ما فيش اي سبب انه نختار محل ثاني، فاحنا كثير سعيدين انه احنا موجودين هون، وبكون اسعد اكثر كمان اذا تفتح لي الميكروفون اكثر. ايه؟ تمام اوكي. مرحبا، سمعتوني قبل هلا؟ من غير فيدباك. اوكي، بما انه انا شايف انه عندنا جمهور مختلط، شيء بيصيرش كثير بالدولة هاي ولا بعراسنا كمان، فراح احكي كمان بالانجليزي عشان الكل يفهم طبعا. ماشي؟ ما اظنش في حد بديش اكون افكار مسبقه، ما اظنش حد بقرا جيجك ما بيعرفش انجليزي يعني الجمهور هيك. Okay, Assalamu alaikum. My name is Tamer Nafar and I'm very proud to be part of this event and at the same time to do it here at the Khashabi stage because the Khashabi stage took a huge brave step to go against all odds or Miri Regev, whatever you call them, and just to do whatever they did, and there is no way that we can do it in other place other than Khashabi. So thank you Khashabi for hosting us. Me and my partner in art, partner in love, whatever you want to call it, Woody Aloni, wanted to screen for you tonight our, I think it's one of our biggest creation. It's a movie cinema. Woody مضطر لاقي ماشي fuck وعدكم حكيش بدك بطلع. Woody مال لقيت الشمال. Yeah. So we wanted to show you a cinema movie that will discuss the new generation of the Palestinians. The movie is called Junction 48, but because everyone is sitting in different angles, so we will leave it for the next time. And please buy the tickets for the cinema. This is very important. So I think that part of the movie that we're gonna screen around April, it really has to do a lot of the energies that was around this whole event. It's about fighting the whole, occupation, colonialism, imperialism, ISIS, but at the same time, be نقد بناء, to give criticism for ourselves. And I would like to rap for you spoken word. I will do it. Something in Arabic. It's called Yaret. It's part of the movie. And those who don't understand, they just enjoy the flow. No. يا ريت ويا ريت اكتب لك قديش حبيتك بلا جدار لاني عم بشكي من حيط وببني حيط بيني وبينك. يا ريت ويا ريت اكتب لك قديش حبيتك. يا ريت ويا ريت اقدر اكتب لك اغنية حب ملانة كليشيهات. انا ببدع في كل اشي واشي بس بسكت بالاشي هاد. بدي اوصف بوصف بالمطر بطن ترجف بس بكره المطر. بعطيني تروما سقف بدلف فبحط طناجر في كل القرن. المي في كل الغرف وصلت لي فل الركب فبدي صد النقط. بحط اغنية الحب بالجرور بتعود تعود بعد بفك كل العقد. فصفيت مبلولة على عتبتك. شديني من الشارع دخلك غطيني في ملبسك. خايف ابين عريان وضعيف انا جنبك. اطردي مني جن الفقر، اطردي مني جن القهر، اطردي مني الشعور انه فيش بكره. اطردي مني جن السم، اطردي مني دين البنك واحضنيني اكنه فيش بكره. يا ريت ويا ريت اكتب لك قديش حبيتك بلا جدار لاني بشكي من حيط وببني حيط بيني وبينك. يا ريت ويا ريت اكتب لك قديش حبيتك. يا ريت ويا ريت. محمود درويش كتب بنصير شعب لما الشاعر يكتب وصف إباحي لبطن راقصة. أول شيء الله يرحمك، ثاني شيء كنت بزودها بنصير شعب لما بطن الراقص ينوصف في إباحية على إيدين شاعرة. فبكتب ضد الشرف اللي كتبوا الذكور، ضد حصار غزة، ضد اللي قطعوا النور، ضد المخيم وضد الريس بالقصور، وحاليا أغنية الحب لاجئة في الجرور، وأنا لعتبتك لاجئ. ذكريني إنه الظلم مش حاجة بل حاجز. نزليلي ملابسي بلمسك، مستعدة أبين ضعيف وعريانة لجنبك. حطي فيي جن الناضجة، حطي فيي جن الثائرة، حطي فيي جن العاشقة، لا أخاف عليكي ولا أخافك. حطي فيي جن العاشقة، حطي فيي جن الثائرة، اللي بتطالب برضه بالأرض وبرضه مش كافي. شكرا. The first time I heard of our superstar Žižek, we're gonna enjoy the lecture because other than the politics and analyzation, you're gonna hear a lot of fuck. That's very interesting. First time I heard of him, it was a book called Welcome to the Desert of Real. That was the name, Welcome to the Desert of Real. And I had a flight, we had a tour in the US, so I had like 12 hours. And back then, I checked the movies on the flight, and it was either Žižek's book or there was Chuck, do you remember Chuck Norris, Walker, Texas Walker? It was a series of Texas Walker, all repeat, all around. So it was this or this, so I had to, yeah. So that was the first time, but unlucky me, stupid me, I went to the airport with the book, holding the book, and I was showing it to Mahmoud and Suhail. Shuf, I'm gonna read it, like, because it's my first philosophy book in the world. And I don't know if you remember the cover, but the cover was the two planes crashing and it would have been impressive if I was Jewish. It's like, yeah, this is very intellectual, but it's not. Our compilation did not work together. So that was the first time of Žižek. And the second time was when he mentioned my name in one of his lectures, which I was very proud to be part of it. And I will tell the story short, of course you will do it way better. But a few years ago we released a song and a video clip called لو أرجع بالزمن with Amal Murqas, If I Could Go Back in Time. It honestly, it discusses the what we call شرف العيلة, honor killing in Lit. I don't know if you heard of Lit, but Lit is a bit problematic. So we did that, and we were attacked by two activist, intellectual women from the Columbia University, and they attacked us and they blamed us for what was it? We are adding fuel to the Western propaganda. Yeah, we are, because honor killing is a Mossad thing. I don't know how, but it is. So we attacked back because honestly we wrote the song in Arabic to fix our community, and their attack was in English to kiss the asses of the white professors over there. So that was the second time I met Žižek. And before I invite the superstar tonight, actually no, that's it. I'm going to invite him. Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, I'm lazy. I prefer to sit. Yeah. Okay. No problem. Thank you very much. Okay. I cannot tell you how proud I am that I am here, because the reason I like to participate in events like this is precisely because they make an extremely strong point. Which point? The same point as we will try to make. Speak to the mic. I'm sorry. Is this now better? Okay. The same point made when with the conference on Walter Benjamin that goes on in Ramallah. I think the way to fight the state of Israel oppression it's precisely not to be reduced to this stupid role of just political gatherings, free Palestine and so on. Of course it's that. But it's important also to undermine this approach, which is very popular in the West, the view of, for example, when they invited me to promote Udi's film to Jerusalem Film Festival, which I attended as his private guest. Sorry, I still, no, but I'm close enough to you. Yeah, okay. Yeah, the reaction was, so glad that you came here because it's all madness around us. We there in Jerusalem, intellectuals, we are the island of reason, the only place where you can talk rationally. But you see, this is the radical lie. You know, they are the eye of the storm there at an intellectual gathering, precisely because they are supported by all the military operations, madness going on around. And my idea was that the way to truly respect the Palestinian struggle is not to patronize them, you know, as, okay, you are too primitive for our theory, one can only do stupid political slogans with you. No, why not go to Ramallah or here to meet the best thing with mixed public and do precisely what I'm usually doing in other places. Treat you as normal people with whom one can debate academic issues and so on. That's very important. You are not stupid. You know, like, no. Many academics whom I know who present themselves as pro-Palestinian and so on. But you can see this implicit racism, you know. Yeah, we should support, they go to a demonstration, they shout free Palestine and so on. But then when you tell them, why don't you do a debate on psychoanalysis, on ontology, philosophy today, they will not understand it and so on, you know. No, so what's my point here? I warn you, there will not be too many jokes. I want also to say some problematic things, but I expect a brutal reply from you, and what I will say now, I mean it seriously. Although it has a comical theoretical point, namely, do you also have in both of your languages, Arab and Hebrew, do you also have this, how should I call it, form of politeness where you make an offer, but you know that it will be rejected. The whole point of the offer is to be rejected. For example, in my country, let's say, but I'm not, unfortunately, let's say I am rich, I invite a poor friend to dinner. When the time comes to pay, even if it's absolutely clear to both of us that I will pay, we have to go through this ritual, you know. He says, let me pay, and I have to insist. He insists a little bit, not too much, then he says, and you know, that's the magic of human communication. In a way, it's a fake, because we both know that I will pay. And believe me, it's horrible if it's not like that. When I was young, I was a victim of such a procedure because I insisted too much and my rich friend told me, okay, if you want, you pay. And then I have to pretend, oh my God, sorry, I forgot money at home and so on. But what I'm saying is that this is a beautiful example of how politeness works. You made an offer, which is even, in a way, an insincere offer. We both know the result, but it works in this way. It's similar with the one who will also on video participate tomorrow in Ramallah on Benjamin colloquium. Judith Butler. I had a similar experience once with her. I was talking to her in a little bit a brutal way, then I wanted to apologize, and I called her after the event. I said, sorry Judith, I apologize. And she told me, you know what, I know what you are, you didn't really mean, so no apology is needed. But I'm such an evil guy that my temptation was immediately to say, okay, no apology is needed, I take it back, no? No, you see the paradox. The paradox is that the apology was accepted precisely by her saying, you don't really need to apologize. If she were to say, oh my God, yes, I well deserve the apology, it would have meant that she is still bitter, that she didn't accept it. Now you will say, what does all this has to do with our ideology, political experience, and so on? It has a lot, I will improvise a little bit as usual, with our ideological predicament. So again, what interests me in language, in our communication so much, and I think it has a lot to do also with your predicament here, with how ideology functions today. It's that, whenever you have an ideological edifice, and I don't mean ideology in this narrow sense, a worldview, this is our highest value, communism, Islam, whatever you want, religion. I mean ideology in this absolutely basic sense, in ideology inscribed in our most ordinary daily rituals. The big rule is this one. Okay, every group from family to nation is held together by certain rules. We all know this. You have to respect certain rules. But if you look closely at it, and this is what fascinated me always, these rules always need a higher level rules which tell you how to treat these explicit rules. I don't know how it is with your societies. I would like a reaction from you. Because all societies that I know relatively well, it's that there are rules, but you really are accepted in a certain community when you know how to deal with the explicit rules. Which rules are not only such rules that you are allowed to violate them, but you are even expected to violate them. Like if you stick to these rules, literally you are an idiot. You know, I claim that even in traditional patriarchal societies, this is how many of sexual prohibitions work. Like, father officially tells you, don't play with girls, work, but then secretly, you have that girl and so on, The obscene message within the lines is there are rules which you are expected to violate. And I don't know how is it here, those of you who are Israelis, Jews serving the army, how is it in your army, in the old Yugoslav army where I was, where I did serve it, and this is a nice surprise for some of you who maybe you think I'm a kind of a wimpy, weak philosopher. I got the medal as a model soldier, don't fuck with me. I noticed how the army was full of this. Things where there was an explicit set of rules, and there was a series of these obscene, dirty rituals that you had to obey to be really accepted as a soldier. So again, so that I will not get lost. First, we have all these explicit rules which you are meant to violate. But then there is a much more interesting aspect of these rules. You have rules which are given, you have rules, permissions, freedoms that you are given. You are given these freedoms on condition that you don't use them effectively. For example, when I was recently in Japan, I was told there that according to the law, they get every year 40 days of holiday. But so I was told, you are absolutely not expected to use more than half of it, more than 20 days. So I asked them, why don't you then simply make the law 20 days? They told me, no, you're a complete idiot, you don't understand anything, and so on. And they were right, because let me tell you another two stories, sorry, these are old stories, but from book of mine, old forgotten, that I'm sure you don't know. What happened to be, this is the model of it. Why I'm mentioning this to you? So again, we have rules that are explicit, prohibiting something, but between the lines, you are supposed to violate them. And you have rules which guarantee you a freedom. You have a free, to be cynical, you get a free choice on condition that you don't use it, no? And, okay, things get much more complex. But at the most elementary level, isn't it to a large extent like that for Palestinians in Israel? You formally, you have a certain freedom if you are an Israeli Palestinian, how to call it, pre-67, no? You can do many things, but in principle you can do them. But then, de facto, there are so many obstacles that you cannot do them and so on. And so what I want to say is that this is the moment when I think I saw, sorry, it's a rather long story, obscene, dirty, but I love it. When I was serving the army in 1975, I was in a small unit where there was, we didn't have a hospital there, just once a week, every Saturday. Saturday is not your Shabbat. This is Sunday, you know this. Saturday is the passage to laziness, not the lazy day itself. Okay, we were there, we had to announce ourselves, I feel ill, and then a doctor who came from a big hospital checked us up, examined us, those who claimed that they are ill. So this was done in a small room where a soldier who was some kind of a medical technician, nurse, was sleeping, and you will see why this is so important. It was just a bed, a long bench, and a mirror, and beneath it a wash basin pipe. And at the mirror, they were stuck those pre-pornographic, soft, erotic photos, you know, those stupid, like, you know, like this, the woman has a shirt on, if you turn like this, there is pre-pornographic. So what happens is this, we were on there, one was examined collectively, one after the other. Finally, it was a friend of mine who was to be examined, and it already began bad. He said, I have pains in my penis. We all started to laugh because in Serbo-Croat, I have pains in my prick, boli me kurac, literally means I don't care, go to hell and so on, no? And then the doctor shouted, okay, the guy said, no, I mean it literally. Okay, the doctor told him, show it to me. The guy had to pull down his trousers and said, okay, doctor said, what's wrong? The guy said, you know, the skin on my penis, I cannot pull it down. The doctor said, in front of all of us, do it. The guy did it. The doctor said, you are lying, you can do it. The guy said, no, it's only when I have erection that it hurts. Then comes the obscenity. The doctor says, okay, then masturbate, give us an erection. He gave an order, masturbate. The guy desperately tried to masturbate, of course being ashamed of doing it in front of 20 other soldiers, it didn't work. Then the doctor did something extremely obscene. He went to that mirror, took one of those photos, and said, look, what breasts, what legs, masturbate, look. What a soul, are you a true man or not? Now comes my point, very sad. You would have thought a wonderful moment of subversion, solidarity, and so on. No, I claim, this was military community at its worst, at least in my country, but I doubt if yours or even American are different. For a community like community of soldiers and so on to function, you need this, what I call obscene supplement, all these subtle, secret, obscene rituals where you enact implicitly, again, things, because back to that story, I remember how then, while shouting at the soldier, masturbate, are you a man? The doctor looked at us, gave a wink at us, we all laughed, even the poor masturbating soldier laughed. This is what I call an obscene solidarity which held a collective together. And this is my basic, you must feel it, form of racism. I don't know how it is here with regard to Israelis, Palestinians, but I can well imagine, for example, liberal Israelis, very friendly, yeah, we love Palestinians, but then at the level of these tiny daily practices, you know, racism survives. I think this is the proper level of racism today. More or less, not all. Publicly we can be liberal, equal rights and so on, but there are always then details which bother you with the other group, the other race or whatever. For example, I will take the opposite example of anti-Semitism. My mother, old one, now she's dead, an old Jewish lady was her best friend. And once I remember this best friend, old Jewish lady, was visiting my mother. They exchanged some money. I don't know who borrowed or returned it to whom. And when that lady left, my mother told me, you see, she is my friend. Isn't she a wonderful old lady? But my mother told me, did you notice the strange way she was counting the money, with this strange intensity and so on? You know, this was that tiny feature which tells it all. Basically, what my mother was telling me was that the Jewish lady is really an alien. In what sense? Did you see those wonderful, I love them, from early 50s, American paranoiac films about the invasion of aliens, where aliens look exactly like us, act like us, just then sometimes they usually, I don't know, they have too much skin here or between two feet. No, there is a feature where you discover that even if they look and act almost like us, they're really totally other. And that was my mother's sign of recognition, was almost shibboleth, I would say, no? But did you see how she counts the money, you know? And again, I think that these implicit, small daily rituals are maybe the most difficult element of racism to fight. Because, for example, in the United States, I have some friends, although I don't like them, who are politically correct, leftists. Oh, you cannot make a bad taste joke against a black man. I mean, black people are my friends. I always make jokes of them. And this is why we are friends. Extremely dirty jokes. Like with a big American academic a year ago, you know, people were shocked around me. I told him, is it true not only that you blacks have but that you can move them without, like, for example, you see a fly on your knee and puff. You know what my black friend did to me? He embraced me, not to embarrass him, he's a big academic name, I'm sure you know him. He embraced me and told me, now you can call me nigger. Precisely because nigger is an extreme racist name, telling you that you can call me a nigger means you are really one of us. And I knew very well that's the paradox. Of course, this was an offer to be rejected. He didn't really mean, oh, nigger. But it was a kind of proximity. And here, you know what would be my dream of real friendship between an Israeli and a Palestinian? Not this shitty respect. Oh, I like your food, I like your songs, whatever, but sometimes, not always, they can be extremely racist. Sometimes it works a simple exchange of dirty jokes which establishes kind of solidarity. If it's done in the right way. I'm not saying Jews and Palestinians to just gather here and tell dirty jokes and it will be a universal peace movement. But in very specific circumstances it can work. I will tell you an example of how it worked. In my own country, ex-Yugoslavia, some of you may remember that we had a terrible civil war in the early 90s. But before that, when I was young, there was a high culture of racist jokes, but I claim these jokes were the very foundation of our, officially it was called brotherhood, unity, respect. Because first, these were not jokes so much against each other. in this racist imaginary, each Yugoslav nation, Slovenes, Croats, blah blah, was identified by a certain feature. Like we Slovenes were supposed to be misers, avarice. We didn't like to spend money. Bosnians were supposed to be sex-obsessed, crazed. Montenegro were supposed to be lazy. And it was, whenever I met a friend from another nation, it was a kind of explosive competition. You know, who will tell a better joke, but mostly about him or herself to the other. And I will not bore you with this joke. I often use them repeated, but some of them are quite nice. For example, Montenegro, I told you, they are lazy, you know. Their classic joke is this one. Montenegro is also, I'm sorry if you know this joke, an earthquake territory. Okay, the joke is a riddle joke. How does a Montenegro guy masturbate? He digs a small hole in the earth, puts his penis in, and waits for the earth. The idea is they're even too lazy to. And then, I don't know, Bosnians, they make such fun of themselves as sex-crazed, you know. This is also a wonderful joke against this enlightened United Nations security.
Try to speak to the mic all the time.
I have enough of this fellatio experience. Listen, Udi, I'm not kidding. Okay, now it works. I'm not kidding, but as you can see here, please stand up as a witness for the defense. I am very close to it. Okay. What I wanted to say is that, for example, a typical Bosnian joke, making very subtly fun of all these, you know, enlightened Western professors who came there to teach them Western manners, you know. So the idea is they have a professor who comes there to teach them classical music. And she tells them, young Bosnian boys, you know, we will not do it in a traditional way, like tell me how many symphonies Beethoven did, but each of us should stand up, should nominate a certain motive, image, whatever, and then tell a Beethoven composition which fits it. Okay, first the boy stands up and said, heroism, war, sacrifice, eroica, you know, the third symphony. Then a girl stands up and said, a wonderful stream, Bambi's there, meadow, pastoral symphony. And then a Bosnian boy stands up and said, a brick like this. What? For Elisa, you know that. The most famous Beethoven piano piece, you know, like for Elisa. And what I'm trying to tell you is that there was such an intense pleasure in this exchange of obscenities, because this was the only way to, as the English say, to break the ice, you know. For me, it's always something suspicious in this official respect. Oh, what a wonderful folkloric dances or whatever you have. I don't care about that. When I come to a country, I say, look, like here, for example, here in Israel, with my Jewish friends, the first thing I always ask them is, tell me some dirty inner Jewish jokes, you know. And I will not go into them out of respect, but you know, like some of the jokes about Polish Jewish wives are. So, what I'm now trying to tell you, I'm not getting lost, don't be afraid, I know what I'm doing. The subtle ambiguity of this obscene dimension. On the one hand, it sustains even the most brutal military discipline. Did you see, some of you are old enough, an American film from some 20, 30 years ago with Tom Cruise and Jack Nicholson, A Few Good Men, which is all about this dirty ritual called Red Coat, where soldiers, when they feel that one of them is not solitary enough with them, they have this secret ritual of beating him and so on. This obscenity clearly serves the military spirit. And there were others. For example, when I served in the Yugoslav army, there was absolute homophobia in the army. If somebody was discovered to be gay, he was excluded, sent home, but before that, before the bureaucratic decision came, there were 1 or 2 weeks of absolute hell for him. Every night he was beaten by other soldiers. Nobody wanted to talk with him. So you will say, okay, homophobia. At the same time, I never saw a community more penetrated totally by homoerotic innuendos than the army. For example, in my unit, I remember when you met soldiers in the morning, you didn't say good morning, you will say popushimi, which means smoke mine, which means fellatio, and so on. And it wasn't even a joke, there was no obscene smile, it was simply. So you see this one interesting paradox, absolute homophobia, but at the same time, the entire daily life was penetrated by homoerotic rituals. Like I remember the stupid vulgar one, when we were staying in line waiting for food, the common joke was that one of the soldiers staying behind you quickly put his finger into your ass, withdrew it, and then you turned around and haha, guess who it was? But you see my point. My point is that, and it's very important, but here I disagree with some of my cultural studies colleagues who think that all these small subversive rituals are a form of resistance. No, I claim they are the very mechanism which sustains these horrible military units. You take this away from them, the whole military discipline disintegrates. It's the same, I always like them, maybe you know about them, again, from American films about the Marines. They are, I think, crucial to understand American army, so-called marching chants. The songs that American Marines are singing while they march, they are a mixture of obscene, vulgar eroticism and nonsense rhymes, you know, so-called limericks, right? From one film, I remember, I think it was An Officer and a Gentleman, with Tom Cruise again, blah, blah, where it says, the songs goes like this. I don't know, but I was told that Eskimo pussies are rather cold. Like, total banal. But again, the question is, this is what sustains military unity. You know, they can claim it's a unity of discipline, sacrifice. Look at it closely. You always have to have these dirty, obscene rituals. If some of you know a little bit about history of literature, literary, maybe you have heard about Mikhail Bakhtin, the famous Russian fellow traveler of formalists who elaborated a theory of carnival. He was in his book on François Rabelais, you know, Pantagruel and so on, written in the mid-30s. It's the idea, he describes these wonderful ecstatic moments when, in this ritualized transgression, you know, all rules are suspended for one day or a week. The king is a beggar, the beggar is a king, and so on. You can get drink, fornicate, whatever. But then, when they discovered recently some archives, the preparatory manuscript of Bakhtin, they made an incredible discovery. You know what was his secret model for carnival? Gulag. He claims that it precisely works like this. You think you have a stable position, you are local party secretary, up tomorrow you are English spy, gulag, all values are turned around, and so on and so on. And I mean this in the deepest respect for Jewish victims. There was an element of this even, it's clear, if you read, for example, Primo Levi, that Holocaust absolutely had this carnival dimension. You know, there was a certain, in a terrible way, playful horror in it. This brings me to my next point, which I don't have. Sorry? Yeah, but I must confess, you got me here because, don't ask me why, but I have problems with Nietzsche. You know in what sense? I am a staunch Wagnerian. Sorry? Sorry? Oedipal? Yeah, maybe. No, but Nietzsche is the rebel. I think that Wagner is much more ambiguous. We don't have time to go into it, but you must have already seen that I'm crazy and I have to improvise. If you know just a little bit about Wagner, yes, he was a disgusting person as a person. But, sorry?
Good position.
Not only this, look if you know his operas. The main hero, this tragic figure who, his problem is he wants to die but cannot. And he's the good guy, the tragic hero. Wagner says it, it's clearly a figure of the eternal Jew. Second point, where Wagner is openly anti-Semitic, at least it looks, like all those minor figures like Mime in Nibelungs, who are all obviously caricature of Jews, it's absolutely clear, Wagner wrote about it, that they are at the same time self-portraits of Wagner himself. So I was 5 years ago with you here in Jerusalem, and my friends tried to convince me, my Jewish friends, stop this Wagner bullshit. At the same time, for some public holiday, I heard, maybe you know it, Karl Orff, Carmina Burana. And I told them, are you crazy? You don't allow Wagner? While that filthy guy, Karl Orff, who wrote Carmina Burana directly for the Nazis, you allow him. That's another story. Let's return to my main point. So, you know, this is why I think Umberto Eco's, maybe some of you read it, The Name of the Rose, is a totally false book. Laughter is absolutely not automatically liberating. It's very ambiguous. For example, I read now an interesting book on ancient Greece, Athens and Sparta. And I discovered that in public spaces in Athens, they prohibited laughter. Because they claim when you mock an enemy, this introduces a certain brutality that doesn't have place in public dialogue. In Sparta, the totalitarian Sparta, they have a whole series of humiliating rituals of laughter. Like you took an opponent on one of the helots, the poor people without any rights, they gave him some drugs or wine to get drunk, and then they used young people to make fun of him, throw stones at him. He was just dancing like crazy, and everyone laughed and so on. I think this is very important. Humor is absolutely not automatically liberating. You can have very brutal racist and so on attacks, but my general point is that, theoretical point, that every ideological field has its own secret underside, secret obscene rituals, they can be sadistic rituals and so on. And to attack ideology means attack that. And I will give you now, I hope you don't know them, 2 other examples which perfectly illustrate this, like prohibitions which are, this would be my formula. It's not only that some things are prohibited. In every system of ideology, group identity, prohibitions are themselves as a rule prohibited. The ultimate prohibitions or orders, you are not allowed to proclaim them publicly. For example, I'm sorry to know it, my eternal example. Let's say it's a beautiful dream, that we are in Moscow in 36, I'm Stalin, okay. As usual, you have applause and so on. Then we have a debate, a free debate. One of you is stupid enough to stand up and criticize me. Of course, the big question next day would be who has seen you alive, the one who was alive. But then something much worse happens. Another member of the Central Committee stands up and shouts at the first person, are you crazy? How do you dare criticize Stalin? Don't you know that we don't do this in Soviet Union? He would have disappeared even faster. You see the paradox. It was not only prohibited to criticize Stalin, it was also prohibited to publicly announce this prohibition. You have to it wasn't that officially you have to be subjected, disciplined, and secretly you have your transgressive dreams. It was almost the opposite. You had to pretend to be free. The prohibition itself was secret. And this is the supreme case that I know. I have a photocopy of a document I will talk about at my home. And know how it is in Israeli army, but in old Yugoslavia, we have military conscription. You were there first 2 weeks you were just trained a little bit, and then it was the big moment. You had to swear allegiance, you know, like solemn oath. I'm ready to die for my country, blah, blah, and sign it. Okay, a friend of mine then came to the officer where it was this big golden book, and he said, I don't want to sign it. And then the officer said, are you crazy? You will be arrested if you don't sign it. My friend, a soldier, countered. He said, okay, tell me clearly, is it obligatory for me to sign, or is it my free choice? The officer said, my God, it's your commitment to die for your country. This must be your free decision. Okay, the soldier, so then I will not sign. So after quarter of an hour of negotiations, my friend soldier got from this officer, he was stupid to do it, the officer, a written document where it said something like this: I, officer that and that, order this soldier to voluntarily, freely sign that oath. And I'm saying that this is not a joke. At every community to which you belong, you have at a certain basic level this paradox. You have a free choice on condition that you make the right choice, as it were. And I don't think that this is even necessarily totalitarian. Why am I talking about this here? Because I think that the way to analyze the situation today, Israel here, Palestinians, West Bank, but also around the world, especially in our so-called permissive liberal times, it's absolutely basic to take into account all these ambiguities. You know, in the old days, you had a father who says no, and you secretly resist it. It's a simple situation. It's much more traumatic to have a father who is extremely liberal father, who tells you, you are free, make your choice. Whenever you analyze closely this freedom, you discover that it contains an even stronger prohibition. An example that I use in some of my old books, I'm sure that you don't know it. Let's say it's Sunday afternoon, or your Saturday, whatever, and your father wants you to visit your old aunt, whom you hate. She is dirty, senile, old bitch, whatever. Okay, so let's say you have a traditional authoritarian father who tells you, I don't care how do you feel. I know you don't want to go, but it's your duty to go there. Go there and behave nicely to your aunt or grandmother, whatever. No problem with this, I claim. You will learn to obey, but at the same time you will learn to resist and so on. Let's say that you have something much more horrible, a postmodern permissive father. What will he tell you? Something like this. You know how much your grandmother or aunt loves you, but nonetheless, you should visit her only if you really want to visit her. Look, every child, and they are not idiots, knows what's the true message, that beneath this appearance of a free choice, there is a much tougher order. The true order is, I don't want you only to visit your grandmother, I want you to like to visit it, you know. I want you to visit it freely. And that's, I think, the paradox, I don't have time to go into it now, of our Western permissivity and so on and so on. It's literally today that, and if you have some psychoanalytic friends, they will tell you, most of the patients that you get today in treatment, if you are a psychoanalyst, their problem is not, I don't know, impotence because they integrated some prohibition or whatever. No, their, not prohibition, but their commandment is enjoy, you have to enjoy sex, I mean. And they feel guilty for not being able to enjoy. That's the problem today. That's the problem of hedonism, when permitted enjoyment turns into obligatory enjoyment. Okay, this is just a short 5-minute introduction. It's your problem if it lasted more. But I would like to go on here in a little bit, at least some of a little bit more complex topic. Let me just, sorry, we need some check. Where are we now? Okay, it's not as bad as I feared. Okay. From here, I would like to return to my good friend Tamer Nafar, and I would like to recall the accident that he mentioned at Columbia University, because, you know, he is just a poet, singer, but I am like secret policeman. I know the exact words there, what he said, you know. You know, it was this typical fake American political correctness. You know, it was as he said. He sang a song on problematizing honor killings, and the idea was, even if they happen, they are, it's the Zionist oppression that they are responsible for it. We shouldn't talk about it, it's just some Zionist propaganda. And I find this horrible. Instead of Western feminists or whatever, instead of being glad, but at the same time becoming aware that we in the West have no right to assume that arrogant position of primitive Palestinians, we will introduce them to feminism or whatever. They already have their own struggles. No, the idea is, again, you know, this apparent respect for Palestinians. They're under such an oppression that we shouldn't bother them with these women's rights and so on. I think it's in a way extremely patronizing and racist towards Palestinians. And this is where I think I'm an arrogant guy. You, Tamer, you quoted yourself incorrectly, you know. The way I was told, Tamer answered that his critics, when you criticize me, you criticize my own community in English to impress your radical professors. I sing in Arabic to protect the women in my own hood, and so on. And that's the correct answer, because his songs, and as well this Udis film that he mentioned, Junction 48, what I like about them is that it not only...
Don't tell the end.
I will immediately tell you the end. I will immediately... No, I'm a confused guy and I don't know exactly, so please tell me exactly what I shouldn't tell. To be sure that... No, I will not, okay. What I want to say is that the reason I like that film is that the message is not this white patronizing message, oh my God, primitive Palestinian women and so on. It asserts the woman's subjectivity. They have to decide. You know, it's something like, for example, it reminds me to a wonderful scene in, although I don't like the film so much, Spike Lee's Malcolm X, where, you know about Malcolm X, okay, where in the middle of the film, Malcolm X, let's say Denzel Washington, makes a speech at some big white college, and a white student girl approaches him and said, tell me, I was impressed by your speech, what can I do to help you? And he simply tells her nothing. I think, again, it's a much more refined message. It's not simply nothing. The point is that, yes, your help is welcome, but you have to accept the basic fact that our black liberation will be our own act. Because the liberal American white dream is blacks are like children, naive, we will have to liberate them. No, they will have to liberate them. And again, it's the same message of Udi's film. You know, neither Western liberals nor enlightened Palestinian men can liberate Palestinian women. Yes, we should help them, but the act has to be theirs. But now we encounter, now comes the more problematic aspect. Now we encounter the true problem, and it is a serious problem. We, as you know now, we have in Europe many of the, not from your place, but mostly Syria and so on, refugees. And we have two types of reaction typical. I am opposed to both of them. This brought me recently many problems with what I claim are fake leftists. On the one hand, of course, I'm totally opposed to white West European racism in both of its versions. On the one hand, this Christian anti-Muslim version, which is, you know, we are defending Europe from the threat and so on. Well, I agree with them. Europe is in great threat today, but they are the real threat. If there are 2-3 million more Muslims in Europe, and by Europe I mean what is worth defending in European legacy, the emancipatory tradition of women's rights, equality, welfare state, and so on. Hopefully, with 2-3 million more Muslims, that would survive. But if the anti-immigrant right wing, which is now exploding in Europe, if they come to power, it's the end of Europe, I claim, as we know it. All that, and they even openly say it here. If there are some Israeli Jews among you, I hope you are aware of this. It's the darkest phenomenon that I saw. This, I'm not kidding, I will give you instantly 2-3 examples. What one cannot call but anti-Semitic Zionism. Look at the really nasty guy. You remember Breivik, the Norwegian guy who shot 80 people in that Labour Party camp. His crazy writings, reflections, are worth reading. You learn, because when he talks about Western Europe, he is openly anti-Semitic. He says that in Europe it's not such a problem because Nazis took care of it, not too many Jews. England already has too many Jews, it will have to do something. America, too much Jews. So there he worries. But look at the surprise. As to the Middle East politics, he said we should fully support the state of Israel, even organize them to throw out the Palestinians, to make Jerusalem the eternal capital, and so on and so on. That doesn't surprise me. It's the, the strange, what's for me, and you Palestinians among you are paying the price, the most horrible hypocrisy is that of Europe. Neither of you Jews, nor of course not, you are the victims Palestinians. If this, look, we Europeans did horrible things to the Jews during World War II and before and so on. But then, this is the ultimate hypocrisy. We now try to repay them by giving them what is not ours, another. I steal from you $1 million from you, and then I took it from you and said, now I repay. This is why, for example, it was very sad for me when after Charlie Hebdo bombings, your beloved Netanyahu made a call to French Jews, come to Israel. Did your media report how all the French anti-Semites applauded him? Yes, we all the same. That's this is, and even in America, the most fanatic supporters of Israel are those disgusting Christian fundamentalists, like you probably don't know them. They write these crazy religious bestsellers like Tim LaHaye and so on. Their theory is this one. We support Israel, but why? Because it says in the Bible that the Jerusalem, whatever, will be restored to the Jews, before Armageddon, where of course you will also be killed then. But you know, like, it's such a brutality. I really fear this. This is my original fear. This Zionist anti-Semitic alliance, especially because, in spite of my full support for the Palestinian cause, and I mean it, I claim that in Europe today, this good old anti-Semitism is exploding again. And if you are Palestinians, don't be glad about it, because they hate you as much as Jews, if not more, you know. I often suspect that they don't even differentiate you a lot, you know. For them, you are the same shit. You eat hummus and you do stuff, whatever, you know. So that's why, for example, let me tell you where I maybe don't disagree. When you have some of the so-called terrorist attacks and so on, one way of the left to justify it is to claim, but we should understand Palestinians because, you know, like, there was even a graffiti on a wall in Slovenia which said, if I were to live in Gaza, I would also have denied Holocaust. I claim this is a totally wrong tactic. It's not only ethically wrong, it's even totally wrong as a political strategy. I think your answer to Zionists should be, no, when you evoke Holocaust, like, you know, the moment you criticize the state of Israel, you are almost accused of becoming a Holocaust denier. I know, because it happened to me with the book that Tamer mentioned, which was also, was it? No, yes, that one was also translated in Arabic, and friends told me, they sent me even the clips, okay, I had to believe them, I don't know the language, that Jerusalem Post attacked that book as outright anti-Semitic, and Al-Ahram attacked it as the most perfidious Zionist propaganda. I was glad, because as Sartre said somewhere, you know, if you are attacked for the same text by both sides, this is one of the few signs that maybe you are on the right path. You know what would be my answer to those? When they say, you criticize the state of Israel now, oh, you're already with one step at least Holocaust denier. I would say this, no, those who immediately invoke Holocaust to justify some of the Zionist politics, they are really mocking and humiliating the victims of Holocaust.
Mufti.
Sorry?
The Mufti, what Benjamin Netanyahu said.
No, that I know. Now Netanyahu became practically a Holocaust denier. No, that was, I think, so obscene. You know why? Because first, I'm absolutely no friend of that Mufti. He did horrible things in my own country. You know that he went during World War II to Bosnia and organized that Handjar division or whatever. So, no friendliness there. But at the same time, let me tell you another thing, which maybe at least gives some space open for hope. You know that we were become aware, when there was that civil war that I mentioned in Yugoslavia, that the only big city in ex-Yugoslavia with a substantial Jewish community was Sarajevo. You know why? Because Muslims were there. And in Yugoslavia, they had a long tradition of tolerance. In my part, Slovenia, Croatia, you find no Jews. We took them out centuries ago, you know. So, you know what I mean? Like, I don't, for me, what fascinates me is how the role of religions can change. For example, I know I wrote about it, I will write about it, dangers of Muslim fundamentalism and so on. But let's face it, in medieval times and later, Muslim countries, the way they treated the Jews, it was a paradise compared to Western Europe. For example, I read this in a Western history of crusades, not any Al-Qaeda propaganda brochures or what. That, you know, after when Crusaders occupied Jerusalem, they didn't kill many Arabs, they used them as servants. but they killed or threw out immediately the Jews. When 50 years or whatever, 100, I forgot later, Saladin reoccupied Jerusalem. You know that one of his first edict proclamation was a call to Jews, now it's safe for you to return. So again, I'm not saying Islam is innocent, no religion is innocent. All religions are forbidden, sorry if I offend some of you. They are opportunistic, like in Christianity, you know. If somebody slaps you on your, I always confuse sides, right? Show the left, but then, just to be safe, Christ added, you know, all those. I bring sword, not peace. If you have a shirt, sell it and buy a sword or whatever. And not to mention your own tradition, you know, that nice story of how you got the land of Israel. You did have to do, God did order you to do some beautiful ethnic cleansing. So I'm not blaming you, I'm just saying history is horror. And the way I would approach, there are so many things I want to say, but the way I would approach the situation now, I think that the first thing to honestly do is simply to say there is no clear-cut solution. And you know who are my heroes now? Don't laugh at me and don't think that I'm becoming a Zionist. It's incredible if you read the early Israeli leaders, Ben Gurion, even Moshe Dayan, how much more honest they are. Ben Gurion said, we came here and it's a fact. We are taking a land which for thousands of years belonged to others. Let's face it, he doesn't bluff. Ben Gurion it would be unimaginable for him to talk like one, or there are two ministers now, even in Netanyahu government, who openly claim, let's stop with this two-state bullshit, West Bank is ours. Why? Because it says so in the Bible. My gosh, if there is something that one should call religious fundamentalism, this is it. You know, this would be my first modest step. We are all in deep shit, if I may put it like this. Even with this liberalism and so on, freedom of speech, I was so disgusted by Western reaction to Charlie Hebdo, not because I agreed in any way with the shooting of those journalists. Although, if you ask me, I never liked Charlie Hebdo. It was this typical false Western harmless freedom. You make fun of everything, but already I have to add in brackets of almost everything, you know. Like, you can make fun of Mohammed, but as many of my friends who are not anti-Semites, but nonetheless noted, but try to make fun of, for example, of Holocaust, no, and the joke stops. So I'm not saying this is not right. All I'm saying is this. The Western image was the primitive Muslims, they don't have sense of irony, they have all these untouchable points where they go crazy. But I'm sorry, in the West it's the same, although the points may be a little bit difficult. Try to make fun of women's rapes. Try to make fun of the gays, of homosexuals. Try to make fun of Holocaust and so on. Every culture has its, let's call them, points of the impossible. You are not allowed to do it, you know. And that's why I wonder, now I come to a much more problematic point. Now that we have many Muslim refugees entering Europe, I think we should talk, you cannot imagine how much leftist hatred I caused by this. Let's accept the fact that the majority of Western Europeans and the majority of, maybe not the majority, I have a great respect for many Muslims, that they have different priority of ethical values. But I think the worst thing is to, in a politically correct way, to prohibit talking about it. You know, and then you have this situation where leftists make any critical mention of Islamophobia, and then you leave all the space to right-wingers to demonize the immigrants and so on and so on. There are problems, although they are very minimal. For example, There are, in Germany, I tested it with left-wing sources, over 2,000 cases per year where Muslim girls want to escape their family pressure and they escape to police and so on. What to do? I claim the worst thing is to pretend there is no problem. Rules have to be negotiated. We should talk about it openly. If we don't do this, what happens now in France, what will happen in Sweden, it will expand all around Europe. Now, fuck off. This is not your film. Okay. No, I am a director.
Q&A, it's okay.
No, just a little bit. No, I just want to make a final point. So that you will see another point of what is my solution.
That's why everyone here left the company's party. They speak for 5 hours.
When I will be in power, like you in the film, yes. When I will be in power, they will have to listen to me for 6 hours because there will be police there putting down their names. No, okay, we will have time to debate. Let me mention this point. You know, war on terror, ISIS. Our reaction should not be just this leftist lamenting, oh my God, should we really answer to terror with terror? But some more radical elementary question. If you listen closely, follow the media, I don't think they even really mean it, the war on terror. They mean the war on terror, but listen, I guarantee you, if they, the West, were just to put pressure on Saudi Arabia and especially Turkey to really isolate ISIS, Islamic State would have fallen apart in maximum 2-3 months. No, what is Europe doing now? Turkey is now playing the dirtiest game you can imagine. It is blackmailing Western Europe, and Western Europe succumbed to the blackmail. They made this shameless deal of paying Turkey to stop the flow of the refugees and allowing Turkey to use the fight against terror and in this way to bomb Kurds who are the only ones who are really fighting Islamic State. So what I'm saying is that when we hear this demonizing, oh, Islamic State, pure horror and so on, isn't it that this war on terror is dangerous because it masks two other real conflicts? One, and this is the saddest thing, you, my Muslim friends, if you are here, you never miss an opportunity to fight among themselves, pretending to fight the external enemy. The greatest killing is Sunnis and Shias. And on the other hand, on a larger geopolitical scale, Russia versus Western Europe, the geopolitical struggle. So if you ask me, this war on terror is just an excuse for the enemies in these other struggles to hit each other. So this would be my leftist attitude. Not this humanism, don't bomb, what, but it's a fake. They don't mean it seriously, my God. It's not really a war on terror. Okay, I will stop now with just the concluding remarks. Fuck off, stay there. No, sorry, this is my eternal joke with him. With Jews like him, that's the only thing. No, sorry. Also, I hate this false humanization of the crisis. You know, the underlying message is, but look at the Arabs, poor Muslims who are entering Europe. Open yourself up to them, talk to them. You will see that they are the same humans as ourselves. Of course, I'm not against understanding the other, but I claim, I'm sorry to tell you, this doesn't work for two reasons. Now I will provoke you. The most stupid proverb of wisdom that I ever heard is the one which says, enemy is someone whose story I was not ready to listen to. My God, how deep it sounds. You know? You fetishize the enemy instead of listening to him. I claim this is bullshit. First, I appeal to Jews among you. would you really have claimed Hitler was our enemy because we were not ready to hear his story? No, sorry. The first mistake is that, no, there are people who, if you understand them, you hate them even more. You are right. Second part, I don't believe that stories are an inner truth. Every time that I can guarantee you, I know this from ex-Yugoslavia, Karadzic and so on, all ethnic slaughterers always have wonderful mythic stories to tell you about. The inner story, it's not the truth, it's a lie. You do horrible thing to be able to endure it, you tell to yourself a wonderful myth, a story. The third, maybe even more important thing here is that the implication of this is humanitarianism, you know, beneath all our problems, we are really the same human beings. No, unfortunately, we are not. Our struggles are real struggles. I don't believe in this deeper human unity, and it always serves those in power. I remember here in Israel, I was here a couple of years ago, when the big news was that a special Israeli commando unit entered brutally a Palestinian house to arrest suspected of terrorism the father of the family. He was not there, it was only mother, his wife with children. And children, of course, soldiers brutally entered the house, they cried in panic, and mother called one of the children by her name, a girl, and one Israeli soldier discovered that this girl has the same name as my daughter. And she went to the mother and showed her the photo. You see, it's the same. This is ideology at its purest. The basic statement of brutal ideology today is, don't take too seriously ideology. We are all warm humans beneath it. No, we are not. Conflicts are real. Which is why, now I go to the end to provoke even my friend Uli, which is why, you know what would be my ideal tolerant multiculturalism? Not this bullshit, I'm here, I have to understand your culture, you have to understand mine. How can I understand your culture when obviously you yourself don't understand it? When I don't understand my culture. No, what we should do, I am more and more for polite, respectful ignorance. The difficulty is to accept the other on condition that he is not an aggressive Jew.
We call the guards to stop the talk. So let's
okay, but now I have... Okay, I agree with you. Okay, I will use the answer. Okay, now I understand you Palestinians what it is to live under Israel.
I just want to tell you, he's going to continue the talk. He's going to continue. We want to get people to ask questions. That's part of the issue that people are here, I think, and he can answer, and then...
So, but you know, if some of you are philosophers, which dialogues I like? Do you know late Plato's dialogues? When one guy talks all the time, and another guy just says so every 10 minutes by Zeus, so it is so. That's the dialogue I want to hear.
This is a ritual I have to go each time and suffer it, but I think still what I'll do, because usually if somebody will ask a question, you will answer it for half an hour. So we can try to collect few questions. I just want to mark that it's something very important personally for me to mark here, because in a way this talk symbolically, it's also for us dedicated to the late Julian Omer Hamis.
I thought you would say what's really important is your film, no?
No. We try to hide this fact now. And because really 2 weeks before he was assassinated, he tried to do...
You mean 2 years before?
2 weeks before, 4 years.
Yeah, sorry.
We tried to make the theater, the Freedom Theater, and the cinema as a center for North Palestine, in order to claim that it's really a center, cultural center for Haifa, Nazareth, Akka, Nablus, and Jenin. and in a little way for Slavoj to speak here today and tomorrow in Ramallah, it's have kind of the same concept, where is Palestine in the discourse. So that's for Giuliano. And now I think we'll ask a few questions. What I like, by the way, about Nietzsche, that somebody said about him that most of the time he contradicts himself, but most of the time he's right about it. So it's something like your talk here, because there was some contradiction, but we have other people to discuss it.
My God, I would like, to put you in prison.
Okay. So let's just...
it would be good also for your physical education.
So let's 1, 2. Okay, so let's start here. I'll see. Okay, let's take 4 questions and then I'll run away. Yes.
Just put it loudly so that also maybe those in the back will understand. No?
Okay, so I have 2 points. Do you hear me?
Yeah, I do, but I doubt that maybe you should stand up. Sorry, just for the others, because
It would be maybe after that you repeat this question.
yeah, maybe try. Okay, I'm sorry. Go on, so that we don't take your time, please. Please.
So 2 points.
So do it short if I have to repeat
The
it.
critique of Kamel Nafar's song and the whole
Yeah.
killing of women, I think you've simplified it too much. The critique was very deep, that the killing of women is in the context of the personal is political, and whenever the killing of an Arab woman occurs, it's immediately tagged as an honor killing. Whether a killing of an American woman occurred, it's not a culture of violence, whereas in Palestine it's a culture of violence and sexism and Islam and stuff. And the critique was actually very constructive, and they were trying to put it in the context of colonialism, that the private is political. And I think it's the hard work of radical feminists that it should be more respected. They were not trying to kiss the ass of their white professors.
Okay, I see. Can I maybe quickly...
Let's do more.
My second point.
Yeah.
You have you've discussed Semitism and anti-Semitism widely in your different lectures. I think, coming here from Palestine, the whole concept of Semitism and the transformation of it from a linguistic term into a racial term, and the association with the arrest of progression, and then the anti-Semitism and that whole thing that happened in Europe, and then with the colonialism of Palestine, it was projected to us, and we are so sensitive to even speak about Jews. We always have to say like the Israelis or the Zionists, because we are sensitive to Semitism and being anti-Semitism. Do you think we can just, as Palestinians, drop it? And because it's not organic context, it's not something that was developed here. It's something completely foreign that was projected to us. And I wish we could freely say the Jews, as if Malcolm X would say the white person, as terms of inherited privileges or something, and not be very sensitive to we have to say Zionists or Israelis or colonists or settlers or whatever. So that trajectory of the whole complex was implemented on us.
Yes.
Yes,
Well,
your first account of patronization reminded me of Edward Said in his book Orientalism. He speaks about other aspects of this, for sure. It became a bestseller. I don't understand why. It's very boring. It's very tedious to read and very boring.
Which one? Said?
Orientalism.
I totally agree with you.
Yes. It's more boring than Anna Karenina, but that's another issue.
I like both of them, by the way.
I totally agree with you. Anna Karenina is much worse than, for example, that one, the last one about, okay, whatever.
But Edward Said also made a very important point, which is that it is the job of the oppressed to make clear to the oppressor what the mistakes are and where they are going wrong. And I think that the Palestinians, actually I am Palestinian and Israeli, are not doing enough in this direction. For example, I visited once the Quds University, and there was a statement there against, or a statement issued by the management of the university, apologizing for why the vice president of the university visited Auschwitz. And I think that's actually absolutely stupid. I don't know if you agree with me, but I think it is really, and Edward Said, whether the job of the oppressed is actually to educate the oppressor.
And you, and then we'll stop. Yeah. Yes.
Can I ask you a question? Very briefly. First of all, thank you. My first question relates to your point about being explicit in a way in your social manners and your social interactions with the so-called the other side. doesn't that in a way mean that we're going to actually a brighter place in terms of Israel and Palestine with the rise of the radical right and the more explicit profanity from their behalf, and also, because the Zionist left, which I think is much more dangerous, is much weaker at the point. And my second question, although you're related to ISIS very briefly, but you said that ISIS is basically, the Islamic State is just a mask to all of the actual conflicts and problems that are occurring in the Middle East. But don't you think, don't you think in a way that it was a necessity, the rise of the Islamic State? Of course, I'm not justifying, but I'm saying that people say that in a way the Islamic State is the Jamal Abdel Nasser, the religious fundamentalist side of the whole ideology, which basically means that it rose to power because of the frustration from the politics of the last 100 years and the Sykes-Picot and defining Arab borders. And so right now you have sort of a non-frontier, in some manner, unity between so-called Muslims, which actually has a very strong motives that I personally agree with, which is raising borders in Arab nations and so on. And also, it's a necessity because, in a way, it's like a dichotomy to the West. And here I quote Samuel Huntington when he talked about the clash of civilizations. So in a way, you have the West talking about it, the Orient and the West, but you need to have the other side, which is basically the Islamic State, the infidels and the Muslims.
Okay, last here, 1 second. Thank you.
Yeah, because I'm getting...
One will then here, Then the stage will be yours, as you like. Yeah.
You started your speech with saying, talking about the rules, like the explicit rules, the rules that we know, the rules that we know that we're not supposed to violate, that we're not supposed to violate, that we're supposed to mention, and that we're not supposed to mention. You gave this example of Stalin, of you being Stalin, and the person who's like showing everybody that it's actually not allowed to criticize you. But then you moved to talk about racism, and actually your end point was that we don't need to understand each other's society and culture too deeply. It's not like that. It's not the idea. So then my question is, how do you connect this point? Like, okay, so you started with this point of, okay, we have the culture, we have a lot of inner rules that we don't really talk about. The person who points them out is the one who should be killed. But then you move to talk about racism, and how do you connect these points in a more accurate way, if you could?
Okay, so I just want to add to this, and with this you'll answer everything. One of the projects you took upon yourself, and a lot of us, is to take off the mask of the liberalism and show the racism behind this mask of liberalism. But I want to say again, welcome to the desert of the real in the new real. When Trump said, let's not get Muslim into America, when Le Pen is winning in France, when here Palestinian has been executed in the street in front of cameras, and nobody even, so the shame disappeared, like the mask disappeared. And sometimes when I see how Palestinians are massacred here in front of cameras and nobody do something, I miss a little bit sometimes the mask of the liberals or something, because revolution didn't come when we took off the mask. Only the monster appear, and it seems they're stronger than us.
I see. That's a good point, and I agree with you that we are, but not only here, living in, to put it very naively, a new type of even ethical regression. It's not only concerning racism. Even, for example, take torture. Are we aware that things about which it was 20, 30 years ago, it was simply impossible, it would have been too obscene talking about them publicly. Like if somebody were to advocate torture publicly, at least in the liberal West, he would have been considered, I don't know, ridiculous, totally out. Now, in United States, even mostly Western Europe, torturing so-called terrorist opponents and so on is all of a sudden at least silently accepted. And what I claim is that even most disgusting are those who still reject torture, but with arguments. Because I claim, and here I'm an ethical dogmaticist, I claim that if we can talk in any sense about ethical progress, it's a progress in a certain type of dogmaticism. What do I mean by this? For example, let's take rape. I wouldn't like to live in a society where all the time you have to argue against rape. I would like to live in a society where if somebody, some man, goes into this, disgusting male chauvinist, you can be rough with a woman even if she pretends not to like it, she really wants it, blah, blah. You don't have to argue, he simply appears an idiot, like you're a little bit embarrassed, who is the jerk and so on. The moment, the big victory was when we no longer had to argue about it. This is, incidentally, I cannot resist making a detour, one of the most wonderful stupidities of Reagan, president. I remember when I was young, a conference. This was one of the few conferences that he gave freely, and he was too stupid, then he was more careful. When Reagan was accused by a journalist of having some Holocaust deniers as friends at his dinner. And Reagan said, no, it's not true. Whenever at my dinner table somebody denies Holocaust, I always reject him and so on. But of course the problem is like, what kind of friends does he have when he has all the time? So what I'm saying here is that the same goes for me, for example, for torture. The most dangerous position is to be against torture, but through argumentation. Because in this way, even if you are against torture, you accept it as a legitimate topic. The rape correlate would have been to argue, mostly women don't like it, blah, blah, all that. No, we should be absolutely against it. And especially dangerous, I claim, is here the trick ethically. The tricky argument which says we know that secret police and so on always does torture, so let's at least regulate it, that it's done in a clean way, even forgetting about the obscenity of this, because some American lawyers already operationalize it. A doctor comes to you, he makes a judgment, how should they torture, to what extent that you survive. The horror, I think, is this one, that, okay, maybe they all do torture, but ethically, for our public ethical substance, for our mores, customs, it is a mega ethical catastrophe to recognize it publicly. Now, I will be totally open to shock you. Let's take a ridiculous situation where some evil people have my young daughter, I don't have one kidnapped, I have one of them in my hands, I know that he knows where my daughter is. Maybe, out of pure despair, I would have tortured him. But I want this to remain an extraordinary act, which is totally inadmissible, and to be ashamed that I did it. I cannot guarantee to you that I wouldn't have done it out of despair. But I don't want it normalized, Like, oh, I just did it for rules and so on and so on. So, nonetheless, to go on now through the questions, maybe I will begin in the back. It's a very good point that you made, and I will give you a simple answer, which I developed further in some of my books and so on. Clash of Civilizations, yes, but I think that to get over the gap between civilizations the way is not this understanding, I understand you, you understand me, The first counterpoint should be that civilizations themselves don't exist as this homogeneous unity. There is a clash within each civilization. Europe today, the West, is a clash between conservative, openly racist values, between fake liberal values, between a more radical emancipatory values, and so on. So there is an irreducible clash within each civilization. And the only way out of it, I see, is not through this multicultural style, I am caught in my culture, you are caught in your culture, can we communicate? Maybe yes, maybe no. I can guarantee you is we have our struggle since we live in global world, you also have your struggles. The only universality I believe in is the universality of struggles. For example, I remember Egypt, that magic moment, which of course it was dispelled, the magic, but at that point where hundreds of thousands were demonstrating on Tahrir Square, with all the naivety and so on, I take it absolutely, all of a sudden we forgot about all those problems, but do we really understand them, and so on and so on. We knew we have to be at the same position as them. I believe in this unity of struggle. Again, the unity is not that of understanding. The unity is somehow we are fighting the same struggle. The moment this disappears, everything is lost. I'm not saying that I'm opposed to this focus on culture, cultural studies, and so on. I think that the true politico-economic edge of the struggle is obfuscated in this way, you know. I think that the moment we approach problems in this way, we speak in our language. When you say freedom, how do I know that you mean the same thing as I know, and so on and so on? If our starting point is this abstract confrontation, no, then of course we will never get at it. Again, my solution is clash within its civilization and then a kind of a transversal struggle. The unity is the unity of a struggle. Now I will jump up and down what you said about the Islamic State. I am well aware of this aspect, but I'm well aware of what you said. Of course, the Islamic State is, if you want to put it in this way, a reaction to cultural, economic and cultural colonialism, and so on and so on. The problem that I see here is the following one. And I like to take here the extreme example, Boko Haram in Nigeria. I once, believe me or not, I got engaged in a debate with one of them in London, kind of a private debate, and he made a quite nice anti-imperialist position. He said, for us in northern Nigeria, in our daily life, the way we, all of us, experience the disruptive, disintegrating effect of colonialism is the way it destroys our traditional communal life. For us, he said, what you in the West call liberation of women, for us, this is the effect of imperialism which ruins our communal life. So you should understand that that's why we oppose it. Here, I think it's a dangerous position. Why? Because first, isn't there something strange? And this is not only Islam. Think about Boko Haram, what it means. You know what the term means literally. No, it means something like vaguely against false education. Sorry?
The West against the West.
Yeah. But the way I was told, even confirmed by this guy, it means something like no Western education for our women, and so on and so on. Think a little bit about the paradox of this position. How we have, and I admit it, a large anti-Western, anti-colonial movement whose basic programmatic premise is the way to our autonomy and freedom is to keep women at their own place. And it's not just there. Go to Russia. Do you remember 2 years ago, I hope you don't, because I didn't like that phenomenon. That disgusting for me personally, maybe I'm conservative here. Conchita Wurst, that bearded man, girl, singer. But I don't like the phenomenon. But it shocked me the panicky reaction in Russia. Like Putin said, oh, in the Bible I read there are two sexes. What is this now? A bearded girl? Is this the symbol of Europe or what? And so on. So I think, you see, the problem for me is we in the West have our own struggles. Ecology, which I hope we all share. What we call gay struggle, women's struggle, and so on and so on. Some Muslims have other struggles against Western colonialism and so on. And I want to somehow to avoid both false conclusions. Let me assure you that I'm well aware of how even Western feminism, by imposing the Western notion of women's rights directly on non-Western societies, it can function in a brutally racist way, even directly justifying military intervention. For example, this was a very dark moment for American feminism. I remember the debate before Iraq war, Iraq invasion. Some American feminists openly supported intervention, claiming at least it will bring freedom to Iraqi women. As we all know, it didn't, because whatever you can say against Saddam, and this is deeply sad news, Saddam's Iraq and Assad's Syria, with all the monstrosity that they have, are nonetheless, correct me if I'm wrong, the only two Middle East Arab countries which are at least formally which were secular countries. Now, is there another one? Tunisia. Is it officially? Okay, I concede that, yeah. But what I'm saying is that now we lost that. You know, Americans are so stupid here. They make war as a Christian army against Iraq. The result is A, Iraq is under stronger influence of Iran than ever. B, women are much worse now. C, all the Christians almost left Iraq now. So again, what I'm saying is that if we don't somehow, and that's I like Udi's film and their Tamer song and so on, if we don't find a way to somehow in the long term connect all these struggles, if the price for fighting against colonialism for Muslim people would have been, but you have to tolerate, don't mention what we do with women, or on the contrary, if the condition for feminism would be, but you have to be Islamophobic and so on, then we are lost. This is for me a matter of survival. How to do this, avoiding again the Western cultural imperialism, where you simply come there and teach the stupid Arabs or whoever how to liberate their women and so on and so on. So again, I see this is for me the tragedy when anti-colonialist revolt takes this turn, and it's a long story. It's not now. I remember when Kenya, back way in the late 50s or early 60s, Jomo Kenyatta was the president. I remember, I'm old enough, as a child, I was reading newspapers there. When Kenya became independent, clitoridectomy became popular there as a form of anti-imperialism. The idea was, you know, this is our traditional way, we will no longer be oppressed by... Now, again, I'm well aware how false can be the enlightened position. How? I can imagine a Western intervention claiming, but we just want to save women for clitoridectomy and so on and so on. But again, some kind of a unity, we will have to find it here. And I think, from what I know about Islam, I'm not telling you you will have to abandon Islam. Listen, not a lot, but I do know a little bit about Islam. And it has its great moments. For example, let me surprise you with what I know. Do you know that, you must know that, you know how Muhammad became a prophet? Muhammad. I mean, how? Okay, the angel appeared, but first he thought, Gabriel, that this is devil's voice. It was only through the mediation of a woman, Qadiya. So you have, and this is linked to another point in Islam, that it's not a religion of the family. You know, both Judaism and Christianity is Holy Family, family. Islam has a much stronger component of these orphans, you know. Muhammad was not totally half an orphan. You have that story of, who was not Abraham? Abraham and his wife, the other, who is the other? Hagar. Yeah, and all that story, it's this dimension of orphanage, which is why I sincerely believe that Ummah, the Islam community, has a strong emancipatory potential, because it precisely means a unity, as it were, originally, with no family guarantee, creating from zero. It's really a Muslim counterpoint to what I see as a progressive potential in a Christian notion of Holy Spirit. Holy Spirit is, for me, sorry if it will appear as a joke, a proto-model of Communist Party. It means, you know, when Christ says, when his family visits him, he said, no, I'm here. Here is my family, not those idiots, my mother and so on, you know. Incidentally, I'm proud to know some of you Palestinians, because I know that some 7-8% of you are still, I think, Christians, no? You know that the nicest Christian joke, but very respectful, I learned the last time I was in Ramallah from them. For example, I like that one, you know, this Christ saying, anyone who thinks it's more pure or innocent than me, let him throw a stone at me. But you know how the joke goes on? Then Christ is immediately hit by a stone. You know what he says? Mother, didn't I tell you to stay at home? When you have religion like this, I sympathize with it fully. No, sorry, but let's go on more seriously. So what I want to say is that
but now you mean racist against religions. I'm a Jewish religion, and my best friend are Muslim religion, Christian religions, and we don't have the Buddhist religion.
Sorry, I'm very sorry. Can somebody repeat it more clearly? I just didn't understand it fully. I'm very sorry.
You mean racist against religion?
Racism against no.
Yeah. He's saying you
that you are racist against religion.
Sorry?
That you are racist against religion. This is what
Religion.
Okay, no. Why am I a racist against religion? I am. I openly admit it. No, not racist. I am an atheist. And this is the only thing I added when people, Muslims and Christians often, they tell me, listen, I'm sick of your patronizing leftist Western attitudes. I want you to respect me, not in spite of me being a Muslim or a Christian, but for what I am. I want to be respected. I tell them, okay, perfect. Are you ready to respect me? Not in spite of my atheism, but because of my atheism. And I think there is nothing here incompatible even with Quran. You know that famous saying somewhere in the middle, don't ask me where, that let those who believe even believe, and so on and so on. No, I mean, you know, that what I'm saying, like, there is hope, but let me finish this point. The most horrible thing that I am afraid is that because of this, how should I put it, monopolization of human rights and so on by the West, that then you corner the other non-West in a position where, as it were, keeping women at their proper place becomes the last option of fighting against colonialism. You know why you shouldn't do it? Because you are not really against imperialism. Imperialism today is developing into a new form. Sometimes it's called cynically. It has nothing to do with Asia. Asian values, capitalism, which perfectly combines economic wild capitalism, liberalism, with a violent return of traditional values and so on and so on. That's my simple point here. That today, if you criticize, this is why it's so fashionable today to be anti-Eurocentric. Because capitalism no longer needs this traditional European way. Okay, I don't mystify Europe. All I claim, and here I am shamelessly for Europe here, all I claim is that there is a certain, let's call it, level of European tradition, the line of authentic universalism, the line of, let's call it, I don't know, equality, human rights, feminism, welfare state, whatever you call it. I'm well aware how this can be and was misused for imperialist purposes and so on and so on. But the least you can admit is that this tradition was strong enough in Europe itself to enact criticism of this very misuse of European tradition. You know, and in this way you can explain wonderful paradoxes. For example, in my own country, Slovenia, we have Mladina, a leftist weekly, popular journal. They published, after that stupid Danish scandal, just to provoke it, they published those Mohammed caricatures. But at the same time, now that we have a great right-wing nationalist protest against building a first big mosque in Ljubljana, they are the only one totally unconditionally for the mosque. This is the paradox that Muslims in Slovenia will have to accept, that those who appear the very opposite, us, godless leftists, are the only ones within the establishment who are really fighting for them. Okay, let me go on so that I don't talk all the time. This would be also the answer to so again, to finish that point, because it is important. Yes, I see the necessity, this anti-imperialist logic of ISIS. But I claim that precisely because of all these paradoxes that I developed now, it will, how should I put it, the most it will come of it is a new Saudi Arabia. Saudi Arabia is the original evil for me. It's a model. Why? Because on the one hand, they pretend to be, you know, orthodox, Islamist, but economically, can you imagine it's basically a big bank speculating with oil revenues? It's Western capitalism at its purest, Saudi Arabia. You know, this Saudi Arabia, forget about religion. This is just a big family mafia, reinvesting money and so on and so on. Okay, so...
capitalism is the worst religion. Humanism is the worst religion.
I agree. I'm so sorry I don't have time, but it's the Jewish terrorist Udi Aloni who prevented me. I agree with you, this religious aspect of capitalism, and this is already what the guy who will talk this week in Ramallah, Walter Benjamin, developed when he said, one of his famous short essays was capitalism as a new religion, form of religion. But you know what's so interesting about capitalism as a religion, and I mean it quite seriously, is that it's a religion which works without anyone effectively believing in it. And that's for me the basic attitude of today's Western cynical ideology. Let me quote you a story which I... No, sorry. Let me explain it to you, please. You know, I'm sorry, it's an old story that I use just some 10 times in my books. Niels Bohr, quantum physics, the great guy. There is a wonderful anecdote about him. A friend once visited him in his country house and saw horseshoe above his entrance door. I don't know how it is with you, but in Europe, a horseshoe above the entrance door is a superstitious item, allegedly preventing evil spirits to enter the house. So the friend of Niels Bohr was shocked. He said, but aren't you a scientist? Do you believe in this bullshit? Niels Bohr gave a perfect answer. He said, no, I don't believe it. But then the friend asked, but why then you have it there? Niels Bohr said, I don't believe in it, but I have it there because I was told that it works even if you don't believe it. You know? This is today's attitude. Ideologies function, we just follow. For example, most of my Jewish friends, if they respect all that pork meat, whatever, bullshit, kosher food, I ask them, but do you do it for religious reasons? All of them, not even one gave me another answer, was, no, of course I don't believe it, I'm a clear. It's just part of my culture, you know. This is one of the ways to practice religion without believing in it. And Jews are specialists in this. Like Udi told me this. The big Jewish joke is, we don't believe in God, we just believe that God gave us the land of Israel. You know, like, you remain, no, but I'm quite serious here. This is what Marx developed in his theory of commodity fetishism. How? Even if we are cynical atheists, we don't believe it, through our social activity, we practice a religion. We act, we know that there is nothing magic in a commodity, but we act as if commodity is magic. Let me tell you another joke that I use 15 times in my books, but it fits perfectly, I'm sure you know it. That joke about a madman who thought he's a grain of corn, you know, and he's left out of a lunatic asylum because the psychiatrist teaches him there that he's really just a human being, not a corn, but he, out of time, immediately comes running back. And then the psychiatrist asked him, but what happened? He said, I encountered the chicken, I was afraid that the chicken will eat me. And then the psychiatrist, but we taught you, now you know you are a human being, not a corn. And you know what the madman says. I know it, that now I'm no longer a corn, but does the chicken know it, you know? If the chicken eats. See, that's how religion works today. We know it, but there is another innocent gaze for which we pretend that one doesn't know it. For example, often in our families, these are children. Many of my friends say, I don't believe in God, but I just pretended not to disappoint my children, and so on and so on. We believe through others. And I'm so sad we don't have time to do it. But this type of believing or feeling emotion through others is crucial today. For example, if you are stupid enough to watch American TV, do you know all those series where laughter is part of the soundtrack, so-called canned laughter? Are you aware of the paradox of this? I am aware of it. I come home in the evening tired, put on some stupidity, cheers, friends. I look at it, the TV set laughs for me, and at the end, I feel relaxed as if I laughed. We can literally laugh through others, we can believe through others, and in this way, I think, capitalism is the ultimate religion where you even don't have to believe. Listen, I have an extremely stupid diabetic problem. Can I run to the toilet? Yes. I run there and answer. You know, this is called diabetes.
Let's hope it's number 2, so we can Okay, so we will be back for another few minutes. In Žižek time, it's another 1 hour. We will be back in another few minutes to close things, so I will appreciate it. Adiol! Adiol! We'll appreciate if you just stay for a few minutes so we can have a nice closure. انبسطتوا? Did you enjoy it? Okay. مش لعبة بيانات ولا ياخذ بيانات. Okay, so just another few minutes until he comes from the Slavoj Žižek.
I'm so sorry, but this is what I call diabetes when you are 66. You know? We have to do it. Let me just finish. So again, what I am afraid is that if you have this type of anti-colonialism, you will just get some kind of a oppressive new form of imperialism. It will not work. What are now comes the interesting thing, the question about anti-Semitism and so on and so on. From a Palestinian colleague here. Yes, basically, if I got your refined point correctly, basically I do. Although aren't things a little bit more complex? For example, and this was told to me by some Egyptian Muslim friends. Wasn't there in Egypt 10 years ago a very popular TV series, Protocols of Zion?
Yes.
So this means that there is something, I don't know how to call it, it's not European anti-Semitism or whatever.
No, it's taken from the European anti-Semitism, but we are like take it because Israel existed. Like after Israel existed, they took all the anti-Semitism that was in Europe and we use it. Like
That I totally agree. Anti-Semitism, no, I'm here totally my God, I know all the stories, how even till the end of the 19th century, my God, listen, I will tell you, it's so interesting to read Western travelers' reports from visiting the Turkish Empire, where it's total reversal of today's prejudices. They claim Turkey is a decadent country. Why? Because, as a French visitor reports, he said, in Istanbul I saw a rabbi debating with a mufti, another Orthodox priest, like, they just mix freely all religion. What kind of country is this? And so on. You know, like, it's so interesting that in that golden era of European nation-state nationalism, there again, their reproach to Muslim Middle East that it's not exclusive enough. That I deeply agree with you that anti-Semitism is, in this strict sense, a European phenomenon, and
the creation of Semitism.
Sorry.
The creation of Semitism itself as a racial.
What do you mean by creation of Semitism? Could you be more precise here?
So you cannot be anti-Semitic if you're an Arab because it's a European creation.
The representation of the Semite, the taking of a Semite from a language into a racial context and then association it with the arrest of progression or arrest of maturation.
Yeah.
These are the processes that at least Joseph Mas'ad and Edward Said talked about that happened in Europe and then were projected to us in an organic way. So,
this I agree, but you know, when you say in a...
you need to create a Semite in order to be anti-Semite. You need to create a representation of what is Semite, you know, what is the...
Yeah, but here, for me, things I would just like to, not in any case, to avoid the difficulty of the question, but I would like to complicate things. First, you know that the tragedy is that, how should I put it? The way people perceive you up to a point always affects what you are in yourself. That's the tragedy of racism. For example, in United States or in Western Europe, you cannot say there are authentic Jews in early modern times and there are anti-Semitic prejudices. I'm not saying that anti-Semites were right. I'm saying that the way a foreign gaze in a country in which you live constructs you, it somehow affects your identity. You cannot simply say, that's not me. Of course, it's true, that's not me. But what you really are is already a reaction to the way the other sees it, and so on. You know, I even once make a nice analysis of how most of the ethnic or even national identities become what they are by identifying with a foreign gaze on them. For example, when I was in Argentina, I learned that, you know, this image of Argentina that we all know, the popular bullshit, gauchos riding on pampas and all the bullshit. They didn't know that they have this, but around 1800, the first English, especially visitors, visited Argentina, and they established this cliché. It was a foreign myth of Argentina. Then, when in 1810 or 12, Argentina became independent, they were looking for some feature of identification, and they found it in what the British. And I don't think there is anything shameful on this. I think we should accept this intermingling and so on and so on. But again, I totally agree with you that, like, precisely because what you said, this Netanyahu operation, let's call it, all of a sudden you are guilty for Holocaust and so on, is the dirtiest possible operation of blaming you for, you know, for other sin who constructed you. Although my Jewish friends, some of them, maybe it was a little bit too easy, but I love how they immediately turned it into a joke. They claim that, of course, as a bad joke, that they discovered now some old frescoes where you see Pontius Pilatus condemning Christ to death, and there is a Mohammed-like figure whispering to him. I mean, okay, so let's go back to it. I simply, I agree with your point that about anti-Semitism, which is that I would say it's not only specifically European, it's even specific early modernity point. By early modernity, sorry, I mean medieval ages. For example, it's interesting how in the darkest epoch of Europe, 4th to 10th century, it wasn't a problem. Then, precisely with the rise of money economy after 1000, that was the big change in Christian Europe. Because a theological point of this change was, you can describe it in a wonderful book by Jacques Le Goff, La naissance du purgatoire, how do we say, the third point, purgatory. Neither hell nor heaven, but you stay in between and pay the price so that you can go up. It can be proven, it was part of financial new economy. It was, let's look at it as a deal, you pay the price, you go up, and it's interesting that because, how do you call it, these interests, percentage you get were still prohibited, literally at that point, the figure of the Jew as money lending and so on lending was reinvented. Another crucial point is with the French Revolution, where Jews still, there is a mystical shift in late 18th century. Till that point, the task was to convert the Jews. And the problem was, did they convert sincerely or are they secretly still Jews? all of a sudden, precisely when Jews got civil rights, this dark figure of Jew who cannot be converted, who can only be killed, eliminated, emerged. This is a 19th century phenomenon and so on. And what fascinates me is how, this is for me the saddest thing, I will put it in a paradoxical way, of recent Zionist politics. It is as if they themselves identified with their anti-Semitic image of the Jew. You know? I mean it literally. That's their, you know where this idea came to me? I was once with Udi, he will deny it, he is lying all the time, in Jerusalem or where, and I was presenting his film, and some representative of some cultural institute, whatever Jewish, addressed me and told me, but why are you supporting this guy Udi? Can't you see that he is really just for fame and money, that he wants to use you?
Yes.
Yes, but you know what I told her. But are you aware what you are saying? You are using the most vulgar anti-Semitic cliché and warning me that Udi is really a Jew, you know, just for money and so on. This is the really tragic thing. How, and I don't mean it as a joke, how with this last Zionist term, the Israeli politic is literally, formally getting uncannily close to anti-Semitism, you know. And we have to insist on it. Which is why, again, I agree with you. It's totally wrong to, yes, other countries are taking over some aspects of anti-Semitism. For example, I don't know, I heard that in Malaysia, some of them there. But again, it's strictly an exported system, strictly linked to global capitalism as a reaction to it. This I insist. Anti-Semitism always works only as Marx already said, or Engels, poor, stupid people's anti-capitalism. You know, you don't have anti-Semitism outside capitalism. So that I don't lose time, that Tamer criticism, that you try to partially, another guy here, sorry, was it you? He disappeared. No, was it you? Sorry. But I see your point. Maybe I don't know the context. No, maybe if I'm properly trained, I will say fuck off. You know, like no, but still, like from my naive view, you are doing this. First, you are strictly, as it is clear in the film that I'm not supposed to talk too much about because the whole point of your film is not we are just primitive Palestinians screwing honor killings our wives, but you clearly said this in a context of Israeli oppression. It's absolutely clear. The whole film is set in this context, and I'm also deeply aware of what maybe was your underlying motive, which is how, and here I disagree with great cultural criticism stars like Homi Bhabha, who claim the goal of imperialism is to make all us look like Western people. No, from the very beginning, colonialists always preferred, colonizers, the people they dominate, to retain their traditional culture. The nicest example here is India. You have the most, fuck off, sorry, I thought it was you.
It's to go home and to lock the...
This is the lowest right-wing strategy. You know, when they want to cut short, they invent working class. Poor cleaning, cleaning, they will have to work, you know. Okay, I will stop soon, just to tell you that in India it's fascinating. That's your problem. Yeah. I am a madman. I was never drunk in my life. I'm a good Muslim here. I really don't drink alcohol. Sorry, but just to finish, fuck off. If you were to shut up, I would already have finished. The most horrible book in history of Europe is The Loss, like legal system of Manu. A detailed description of traditional Indian caste system. We detailed everything. If you belong to a different caste, how you should have sex, how you eat, how everything. But you know what? Then it was discovered. In 17th century, this book was half forgotten. The British, when they colonized India, they saw it that they needed a firm, traditional system imposed on their Indian subject to keep them in check. They were intelligent enough to know that if they ruin their traditional way of life, they will make them proletarians, revolutionaries, is bad. So the English resuscitated this traditional work and so on and so on. We should always bear this in mind, that there is a certain form of returning to our traditional way of life and so on, which may appear anti-Western, but it's what your Western masters really want of you. And I claim, up to a point, is not the example of this also Saudi Arabia and so on. You know, it's difficult to be truly anti-colonialist. And maybe with this I should finish, not to hurt your fucking working class, which will have to clean the space here. Thank you very much. Now I will make propaganda. I've seen that film, Junction. The music is so good. I don't want to appear as a cheap popularizer, but the music is so good that you should buy, or not buy. No. You should download on some of those pirate. Thank you.
Okay, thank you all. Thank you, Dialoni. Thank you, especially Žižek Jama'a. شكرا مسرح الخشبة and good luck. شكرا لكم.
Let it be. I don't like to take photos with 30 Palestinians. I don't like it.
כן, שנייה, אני יכולה לבדוק לכם.